Hello, YouTube. I have been blessed. Really, I have been blessed to interact with some wonderful people online. Many of those are subscribers. We do not always agree, but who does? However, I can feel from you that you want a better world. Many of you do. I acknowledge I have much personal work to do, and yet you are willing to give of yourselves and share your time with me. For that, I say thank you. Thank you so much. So today I'm going to take a break from what I have been doing and address one of my sisters from another mother. Forgive me in advance for stumbling over my words. I did not have time to write my words out. And frankly, I am glad that I didn't, in hopes that the time that I spend with you, I would use wisely and draw deeply from within me. And that hopefully I will allow myself to be exactly what I need to be in the moment. I think many of you can appreciate that. Sincerity is indeed a desired quality that I search for when I interact with people. I also wanted to get this out in a timely fashion. So this will be a video with absolutely no edits, and I do hope that you will hang in there with me. Ray. First, thank you for being you. Today we live in a world where being true to ourselves is not valued. The sparkle in many people's eyes have diminished, while there are others who make their presence known that seem to have never had any life within. Truly, even with all the beauty, we are among the walking dead. When I was young, I remember visiting the bookmobile. I do not know if you had this when you grew up. In case you did not, it was a very huge, let's just say a very sizable van. Everything seems large when you are young, or at least it did to me. That had been gutted. Shelves had been placed in it and books took residence there. My mom used to volunteer on it from time to time. Wonderful, wonderful memories. Most of the books were for children. We were able to take for our very own one, maybe two books, depending on the supply that was available. I remember selecting a book about Johnny Appleseed. The exact name of the book escapes me right now. I knew immediately that his wonderful act of planting apple trees across the United States was deeper than sharing his love for nature and contributing what some may think of as a small or insignificant act. I realized he was planting acts of generosity, seeds of concern, and the time capsules of joy, ones that can only come from a true display of charity. Though somehow, I am sure, he didn't see it as such. He was simply giving of himself. This man named John Chapman, otherwise known as Johnny Appleseed. This man was a man I came to respect and who had certain attributes I wished to emulate. I found out one day, many years later, that most of my life I had done this. Indeed, his story planted its own seeds within me. My act of planting happened sometimes with strangers, but mostly with those I loved. Yep, planting seeds. I knew, whether we realized it in the moment or not, that mankind is always planting seeds. Some were even kind to return and nurture them, so positive results flourished. Then I came to a crossroads in my mid-teens and lastly in my mid-20s. I realized I was never going to fit in and that it was a waste of time trying. That there were plenty of other people cloning celebrities, cloning statesmen, sports stars, famous musicians, etc. Being that I am an eclectic individual, I was always appreciative of the unique contributions people brought to this world. This was especially precious when they simply were themselves. So, I embarked upon understanding I was on a journey, one that would last until I took my last breath, and maybe even beyond. I dedicated myself to being me, learning to live in the present, while studying the past and making plans for the future. However, I always thought of John Lennon throughout my life due to a quote that never left me, and that is, "Life is what happens while you are busy making other plans." While embarking upon this journey, I would fall down a lot, of course. My mother would say, "Get up, dust yourself off, hold your head high, and move." She would follow up by saying, "Do not repeat your old mistakes. If you have to make any, make new ones." This, I came to realize, was a huge lesson. Huge! That generously resurfaced many times. Luckily, she was my primary instructor on the importance of being myself, of believing in myself, understanding real friendship, valuing love, and the rewards of being stubborn. I knew growing up that giving up was never an option, though I was tempted many times to do so. But I came to realize I would have time to rest later. There are many things to do, and that there was no excuse ever to become bored. So, as I began to peel back the onion layers of my world, I started to become intimately familiar with lies, deception, and tactics in the art of manipulation. I started to realize the significance of the study of politics, history, literature, philosophy, the time needed for meditation, and the use of martial arts both on a physical and a mental and emotional plane within my world. Those were a few things that captured my attention, to name a few. Some of these subjects I was always drawn to, but later I uncovered a greater appreciation for them. I wanted to plant seeds by sharing what I understood. I hoped that I would be able to help another and gather unto myself people of like mind and others who were not, but that were civil and willing to let me into their internal world, even if for a brief moment via their dissent. More and more information started pouring into my consciousness and even my subconsciousness. We can talk about that later. I started to realize that the topics I would address made people very uncomfortable in my day-to-day life. However, I was no stranger to this uncomfortable state. You see, I was never a person who was good at small talk. I suck at it. I suck at it. And always projected dis-ease when attempting to do so. Soon I realized that people would mock or ridicule me to feel better. Others fled, as if I had an infectious disease. So, for a period, I ceased sharing. The pain of that, the pain of what I experienced was great, and I understood myself to be highly emphatic, so it was no picnic for me. Then one day, without a plan or a memorable catalyst, I embarked upon this road again. I received much of the same behavior as before. This time, I could hear the words of my mom and feel her strength coursing throughout my being. Plus, I had grown to understand my weaknesses and that it was not my place to push anything on another. If I sensed they were uncomfortable, I immediately would cut myself off and move on. I knew there were others out there who questioned authority, who composed questions that may make them appear ignorant, a conspiracy nut, or even delusional. However, now I would just laugh when I sensed this reaction or experienced it. I found it funny that they could enjoy the world as it is now, but never cared to think it took people who thought in unconventional ways, that dared not to repeat the official narrative, that would question, even if it meant the enduring of an unpleasant reality, that it took people of this makeup to change our world. So now I notice once again that something big is around the corner. I understand it would have to be, with the mounting of concerns like war and rumors of war, mankind willfully pitting themselves against each other over the most superficial things, power trips, and the likes. Yes, I know this has occurred long before I entered the scene. However, there is a feeling I have, and no words to adequately explain it with. A feeling that tells me the nuclear waste, GMOs, the likes of H7N9, radioactive water, neurotoxins in our food supply, and the ever-mounting of rule of law that only purpose appears to enslave men will, indeed, all of these things will bring a unique challenge. The dwelling on these observations, though, well, started to produce an uncomfortable weight within me. I knew I had to come to a place where I was ever vigilant, not afraid to roll around in the muck of life, but that I also had to have balance, that I had to allow myself only to let those things get only so close to me, that I did not want to forsake the opportunity of smiling, telling friend or family that I loved them, and really enjoying life because I was too caught up in all of the nastiness that is easy to see, if you care to look. I was not willing to entertain the option of never not allowing myself to feel. I knew deep inside, even if it was unpleasant, that it just had to be done. It just had to be. Sometimes, however, I forget the agreement that I make with myself, or that I made with myself. I become weighted down with all of the ugliness and things that are not afraid to go bump in the daylight. Somehow, I have been fortunate to have gentle reminders, ones that come from the healing of release. When I put my hands in the soil, work on my yard and garden, pushing myself to crunch out the last rep at a gym, even though every muscle in my body aches and I just want to give up. I become aware of this healing when I am brought to tears by the beauty of a well-composed symphony, or experience the excitement of learning of the courage of mankind, what mankind is capable of in a positive light, capable of by means of me delving into an autobiographical work that shows them being vulnerable, that shows them overcoming their weaknesses, that shows them growing. Sometimes I get close to what I think some sincere believers meant by the words, the glory of God. And I know that sounds strange coming from an anti-theist, but sometimes I think I understand what they mean when they truly are sincere and they make reference to those words. When I saw someone, either on film in my mind's eye or in person, the likes of Eric Dolphy, John Coltrane, Gil Evans, the members of King Crimson, Stanley Jordan, Charles Mingus. Yes, Charles. Ravi Shankar, Bella Fleck, or Yo-Yo Ma. Whenever I would see those people perform, I knew that if there was such a thing as the glory of God, that it existed within them and their ability to grab onto those things that are all around us and to shape it, mold it into something so incredible that would invoke so much feeling within us and cause us to think of what is possible if we would just allow ourselves to bring forth the best that we can offer within ourselves and within each other. And that reminder, that gentle reminder came from trees. Yes, trees. Because they reminded me, or remind me, I should say, of the joy one can experience when it knows and submits to only being itself. Anyway, I wanted to have a sit down with you and share. I am so grateful to have done so. Thank you so much for being one of those gentle reminders. You and a few others I have met on this journey during the course of my YouTube experience, and others outside in my world, whether they are in the virtual reality of the internet or whether they walk and breathe the same air as I do within close proximity. I have been grateful to receive these reminders. It has been wonderful to have these reminders. As refreshing as listening to a bird's morning song. Peace and lots of love from me, dear sister. Thank you for all that you give. Thank you. Little boxes on the hillside, little boxes made of ticky-tacky, little boxes on the hillside, little boxes all the same. There's a green one, and a pink one, and a blue one, and a yellow one, and they're all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same. And the people in the houses all went to the university, where they were put in boxes, and they came out all the same. And there's doctors and lawyers and business executives, and they're all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same. And they all play on the golf course and drink their martinis dry, and they all have pretty children, and the children go to school, and the children go to summer camp, and then to university, where they all are put in boxes, and they come out all the same. And the boys go into business and marry and raise a family in boxes made of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same. There's a green one, and a pink one, and a blue one, and a yellow one, and they're all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same.